And I've had multiple experiences of giving light to the corpse
Yes.
and watching the facial expression change.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Gustavo's World. And today we are here in this beautiful paradise with Mr. Doyocho Gary Edmonds. And we're in Puerto Rico, we're in San Juan. Even though I live in Miami, it's a long story, but here we go. The video is about to start. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. There we go! I remember that with this kind of movement or spiritual something, when we take a course, you're able to give light. We can do experiments with food, with drinks, with whatever, and then you can have two of the same drinks or two apples or two whatever, you know, and then you give light to one and the other one you don't. And then what happens is really extraordinary. So what is all this about?
I would say the key point is that the spiritual and the physical are not separate things. For thousands of years we've been taught that, and it was that way for thousands of years, but now we're at a time where the integration, the spiritual, the material is really happening. And for a lot of us, myself included, these types of things you're describing, these are just miraculous, really. It's by normal science, you wouldn't expect this to happen, but yet we experience these things. And one of the things that really attracts me to the practice, I think can speak to a lot of people, is that this is really about experience.
Right.
So we can call it a practice, but really it's about having an experience. And how does it resonate with you? And if it does, then you go with it.
Well said. So does this movement have any origin? I know it's Japanese, and I know the story, but I just want you to tell the audience.
Sure. Well, I mean, this fundamental technique of giving light is something that has been around since ancient times, but basically in the past, if you wanted to do something like this, you would have to devote your life to it, spend decades of doing intense spiritual training, and even then, only the people could truly purify and control their minds would rise to that level.
Oh, wow.
Where now it's something that is available to everybody through a simple 3-day course.
Yes. It's just really amazing how in 3 days you can really do this, and it's just really crazy. And I'm going to tell you a secret, people. The reason why I took this course and the reason why I chose to do this is because, you know, I do hair also, and then I think it's very important that when I'm touching someone's hair for 45 minutes or an hour, that they get all this energy in their head. When I open and close my shop, I give light to the whole place. And people don't know that. Sometimes they see me with my hand like that, and they're like, what are you doing? I don't know, if you come to my salon, you always say that there is a good energy. It feels nice there. I think it has to do with this. Mm-hmm. In almost any major city, we have a Mahikari center. Mm-hmm. So what can people expect when they go there?
Yeah, so the practice of light, basically a session of light is 10 minutes at the shortest with the eyes closed, or a full session is 40 to 50 minutes with the eyes closed, and then checking some points on the neck and the body. And again, any specific condition or situation going on, you can explain it and get some customized light for that. Mm-hmm. And that's essentially the experience, is to have people who are volunteers there and there to give light to people who come. So it's really open for everybody.
Yes, and it's just for you to know, it's free of charge, even though there is a voluntary donation if you want to do it. You don't have to pay for anything. I mean, if you don't want to. That's very important for you to know.
Yeah, exactly. It's an important point that for us offering light, this is service.
Right.
It's service to the universe, service to God, but service to people as well. It's really meant to be done in that spirit. So it's very important that that's a way of us showing our appreciation for what we have and wanting to make a difference for people, helping people.
Yes. So what made you do this? Because not only you give light, you have a high rank. You're like the main person here.
When I was in college, I was very curious about the truth and looking for it. I started off as a philosophy major even. After a year of that, I switched to psychology, realizing that people's psychological states of emotions were a very big influence on their thinking and everything else.
Yes.
And I was looking for a spiritual path, and it was a real dilemma because I saw these books and, okay, the book's interesting, but unless you really try it, you don't really know. And I don't even have time to read all the books. How am I going to find the right path?
Right.
And at that moment, someone was talking about Mahikari raising their hand, and I saw light come from their palm.
Oh, really? You saw it?
Yes, and I'd never had an experience like that before.
Right.
And to me, okay, well, I definitely need to see what this is about. And then based upon that, I received light, and I was very surprised because my first experience with the eyes closed for 10 minutes, I was just simply open-minded, seeing what the experience was, and it felt so powerful, like my best meditation ever that took me an hour and a half.
Right.
And I was like, wow, this is a practice. I knew that meditation works for people who are very devoted and can put the time and energy into it. But what about the people who don't have any interest? It's like, oh, This is for everybody, because even without believing it, something can happen. So this is really something that could reach everybody. That was my feeling, like that made it very appealing to me. The idea of trying to get, and again, not just the people who are already committed and devoted, they're kind of okay in a way, they're already doing something. But what about all the people who just haven't had an experience yet, or they had one experience, but they can't connect it to anything and don't know how to go forward with it?
Right, or they don't want to belong to any religion or anything like that, you know?
And that's such a key point, because ultimately, all religions teach about love. And yet when we look at the manifestation of religions and churches, often there's not about love. There's a lot of very serious attitude and a lot of self-righteousness and a lot of actually vibrations that lead to conflict, because you're with us, you're going to hell kind of thing. and it's very hard. I mean, as human beings, we have this very tribal mentality that we slip into if we're not being aware. And what the light can help us do is to help break out of that and to really work on the deep consciousness where our way of thinking naturally changes. So in some aspects of our personal life may naturally change, because at this very deep level, things are becoming more positive, or things are being let go that were holding us that we weren't even aware of. So it's that ability to work on that deepest level and really include everybody that's so special about what we're offering now.
Right. This experience is different for everybody because every person will experience light in a different way. I tried to meditate before, and I feel that I meditated as well. I feel an enormous peace, and it makes me feel super, I don't want to say powerful, but it creates like a clean slate to do whatever I want. And it's a really good feeling that I get when I get light. So who founded this?
Well, a Japanese man founded it. The organization itself began in 1959, and he was not coming from a religious background. So but he had these experiences with the light and received revelations, and as he followed them, things actually materialized according to the revelations, and he completely went with it.
Right. So, so which kind of like really cool or amazing experiences you ever had giving light? Because we all had some.
Yeah. Well, one of the great things about this is that when we give light, we really do not know what's going to happen. It's not our light. We're not controlling it.
Right.
In a sense, we're trying to ride that wave of like this love and this universal energy that uplifts us all, and we're riding out. We're actually receiving light when we're giving in reality.
Yes.
So, but the thing that I think I can speak to well that is kind of dramatic is when somebody passes away, we try to give light to them when they pass away, understanding that that's a sensitive time where they can be a big influence before they transition to the next world.
Right.
And I've had multiple experiences of giving light to the corpse and watching the facial expression change into some kind of smile or even some radiance to the skin.
Wow.
In the most dramatic case, the funeral home called us afterwards and said, whatever you guys do, we've never seen anything like this. This is like unbelievable. And they're the experts, they do it day in and day out.
Yeah.
But even today, if it happens to me again, I'll be so moved, because it's just, unfortunately, we tend to be so material centered to look at the material aspect, but again, and some people say, oh, it's a placebo effect, it's psychological. Well, when they're a corpse, you don't argue that anymore. It's like, there's really something here. I mean, to me, that's like, in a sense, the clearest proof of there really being a spiritual aspect to human beings. When somebody's dying, yet there's still some change in the physical condition after they're like that. So, the other thing I'd like to add is that looking at the bigger picture of what we're about, for thousands of years, you had to kind of choose between religion and science. It was like almost a war. Either you do spiritual, you do physical, and there's no matching of the two. They're in their own worlds. And it's unfortunate in a lot of ways. There's been so much division and conflict in the name of God, and kind of my understanding or feeling is that there's kind of an experience of going beyond yourself in various ways. Mm-hmm. You could call that being in a flow state or being in the zone for sports. Right. And essentially, this is a state where you get so absorbed in what you're doing that you forget about yourself. So it's actually that freedom from the ego.
Right.
And for a lot of people, this becomes a source of their career because they have that experience, and whatever field they're studying, they love that feeling like that's what it's all about. Well, the light is about doing that and seeing how that can fit into any aspect of our lives. So whatever your particular dream for your life is, if it's financial, business, relationship, health, whatever it is, enhancing the spiritual aspect, bringing spiritual power and bringing spiritual will into that is only going to make things better.
Right.
Although there is a cleansing process that can...
The cleansing.
Yeah, it's not always as simple as we respond. It's not instant. This is not instant gratification.
So let's talk about, like, really quick, let's touch into the, what we call the baptism of fire.
Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting. If you look around the world, from what I understand is that basically every culture, even isolated cultures, have a creation story of some sort. Mm-hmm. And it's basically, you know, in the Western tradition, it's the Garden of Eden. But in other cultures, they have the same kind of a story. So the understanding is that actually this could be some kind of historical event, and it's not just a story, there's some real meaning to it.
Right.
And that's essentially a time when people are living in harmony with nature, very spiritual, but yet with no technology and no development. So there's a natural shift to develop technology, develop science. And I mean, we're living so comfortably now. Thank God for all these conveniences. That makes we're living better than royalty did even 100 years ago.
It's true.
So,
yes.
So this material development has been a tremendous blessing for humankind and all of us. But now we're at the stage where there needs to be an integration of the two, the spiritual and the physical. And often we refer to these as fire and water, fire being the spiritual, water being the physical. So that's this time when the expression is the baptism by fire. This goes even into Christian prophecy about the end times and this purification process that needs to happen. And our understanding is that that's why this light's been made available to whoever wants it now. So we're in like a state of emergency where there's all kinds of breakdown and all kinds of things going on in the environment, in human affairs, with the economy, politics, wars, people's own relationships in their own family. I mean, there's all kinds of suffering going on essentially. And that's one way to cleanse. And yet another way to cleanse is through an active spiritual practice. And the light is an ideal way of cleansing. So in a certain sense, there can be even a choice in terms of removing impurities and improving through the light in an active service, or doing it passively and just going with the flow as things come.
So what do you mean by cleansing?
So essentially cleansing is anything we don't like.
Okay.
So we have some challenging teachings. And one of them is to be grateful for everything. Everyone's grateful for what they like, but what are the things they don't like? So that can be quite hard to understand. But I encourage everyone to practice and just even start to vocalize words of gratitude. Just that vocalization process can increase the positive vibrations in our lives, and those vocalizations can start to manifest in our surroundings. So this is something that everybody can do. So maybe a takeaway from the video for people who don't want to receive light at this time, to practice focusing on gratitude and even vocalizing it. You know, it's one thing to enjoy it, but if I vocalize it, it tends to create more focus. And for a lot of us, our minds are not that under control. So by vocalizing it helps us to focus our minds, which then enhances or builds on that experience. So I really recommend everyone start gratitude with the easy stuff. The stuff that we like and just recognizing. But yes, get into more challenging situations. You know, I want to practice gratitude and be a more grateful person.
Yes.
So for example, in the morning, if I do a little bit of light, I feel better. So now when I'm driving and somebody cuts me off on the road, I'm already in a good mood, so it's okay. It doesn't matter. Like it's not worth getting upset. It doesn't matter. Where maybe if I hadn't received light, that would have aggravated me. Who are they? What are they doing? Like some kind of negative vibration.
I think they are.
It's not a big deal, but it's just like slipping into that kind of road as opposed to being on a positive road. And that's it. It's like anything else, like exercising. If you're going to run the marathon, you don't sign up for the marathon the next day. No, you start to build up your endurance, your ability. So same thing with gratitude. But when we get to the hardest gratitude challenges, like losing a job or losing a loved one, it doesn't mean we're happy that it happened. Of course we suffer, we have emotions. But it's understanding there's a bigger purpose in mind. And honestly speaking, with the future, none of us knows what the future holds. We try very hard to figure it out, to control it, but ultimately speaking, we don't know. And I recently had COVID about a month ago. And the symptoms were light. It was a day in bed. Was it your first time? Yeah, it was the first time. And symptoms were light. It was a day in bed. But at the time, I was like, is this good or bad? I was like, I have no idea. Like, you know, I'd rather not like have to be isolated for a week and miss work, for example. But at the same time, like maybe next year or 2 years, there's going to be some other disease and people with COVID, it's going to protect them from that by having COVID. So there's just no way to really conclusively decide anything. And for a lot of people, that's very concerning. It's to be a source of fear and anxiety. So again, is there a plan or not? So I think there's a plan. And I trust that plan. So for me, the anxiety about the future is really minimized compared to before I had this kind of experience and understanding. So that can be a huge benefit of having a spiritual practice that really resonates with you and shows actual results in your life, where you can really see that there's something, where the spiritual is so involved with our lives, whether we recognize it or not. It's kind of like saying, I don't believe in gravity. So what? Like, gravity's working. It's working regardless of your beliefs in
yes.
it. And a lot of the spiritual principles work this way too.
Yes. We were talking about the science and religion. I see it as a big circle that started together, and they started to distance away from each other.
Right.
And then they were in the middle, actually. They were in the most distant point from each other. But I think right now we're getting back to that point.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting there. So a lot of things that they were magical and spiritual and all that stuff, science is starting to say, well, yeah, that happens, that occurs. And that's really interesting.
Yes. And it's very interesting to me. I think a really good way of looking at all this is that science has partial truth. So it talks to some of the aspects of material reality. It really describes it well and is comprehensive, but it doesn't talk about everything else. And the same thing with religion. Religion has its areas.
Yes.
And even looking at the different religions, we really value diversity.
Right.
Diversity is wonderful. It's a wonderful thing in nature. It's a wonderful thing in human cultures and human beings. But it can be so hard to truly honor that because we all think what we're doing is best and right. And of course it is for us, or we'd be doing something different.
Right.
But to have that idea of having some humility and really accepting that there's differences and celebrating them, this is important for peace, and this is important for everyone's happiness. And honestly speaking, this is for the best results. So whatever really works and is effective will gradually become more popular and again, be more prevalent.
Yeah.
And this is a great thing of living with freedom.
Years before, we didn't have X-rays, we didn't have infrared, we didn't have, I don't know, a lot of things, things that detect, cameras in the darkness. So there is a lot of realms that are occurring simultaneously here that before we didn't know.
Right.
And now, and those are the little gamma of light that we were able to achieve so far. So also with religion, some of it is for convenience, another one is because of ignorance. I mean, they have a certain limit of what they can offer. So, I mean, we're like in a constant discovery, and it's only your heart and, when you experience something, what it's truly about, right?
Yeah. In my case, I became involved in the practice of once in college, and that age when you're first becoming independent, it's so important to have lots of different experiences and to check the things you were taught and learned in childhood. Do they really work for you, or are there differences? And that whole time of process is really a time to really explore, and that's why I would really recommend everybody do. Really, again, make the time to receive light and see and have the experience. And ideally, doing light is something that you do for a number of days, and I think that's how you got started, right? Your actual experience.
Well,
right?
I mean, my experience is really interesting. So I'm going to say it quick. So I have a family member that he belongs also to this Sukyo Mahikari, and then he used to come home and bless everything with the hand, and we honestly felt kind of like, because he wasn't familiar to us, we felt very uncomfortable, and we just hoped that he wouldn't do that just because of ignorance. But we have to confess that when he was through, it felt good. So, but anyway, so the point is, like, once he offered, like, if you go for 7 days in a row to the center in Miami, once we moved there, he says, just go 7 days in a row. I mean, if you don't feel any significant difference, I'll never, ever, ever talk to you about the light. So my mom and I, we were like, yes. So we're like, yes, we're going. We hung up the phone in those years. We're like, we need to go. Like, I can't wait to go. I mean, we just wanted to prove him wrong, So, I mean, we went for 7 days. And in my particular case, the more I went, like here in my forehead, I started feeling like this buzzing. It was very strange. And then at the 7th day, the buzzing was very intense, and I felt so good, like I was floating. And, my mom also felt different, but she felt good. And we asked you, because you were the dojo show in Miami then. And then we said, where do we sign in? And since that day, we've been practicing, and that was in 2007. It's been, a little 5 minutes. Yes. If you're younger And if you don't like religion or any dogmatic thing, or if you don't like people to tell you what to do, or if you don't like, you know, really severe things like that, I invite you to try the light and see how you feel and see if you want to keep receiving it or even give it to people.
Yeah, one of the unique things about us too, especially when we talk about the first 10 minutes with Aslo, is that's something we do with another person. So there's that aspect, it's not just a purely personal private practice, it involves interacting with others.
Yes.
And that, you know, that has its own, you know, pros and cons, as it were.
Yes.
Because we do have, for example, there are people who will approach this in a very religious sense and make this into a religion or so.
Right.
And again, for an individual person.
the organization, right?
Right, exactly.
Yes, I mean, they don't get scared with those people. They're just confused.
Well, what's interesting about it is like every person can really do it in the way that works for them and where they are.
Right.
So the idea is like everybody can take a step forward, and it really should be based on person really experience and understanding, not because they're just trying to fit in or trying to do what's expected, that there's really this integrity about. And that way it's not based upon belief, it's based upon actual experience, which can be lasting, where belief can change here and then another way, whether where the wind blows. So it's really about having that kind of really deeper, heartfelt experience that can really make a difference in terms of, you know, where we go with our lives from this moment in time. Mm-hmm. But you can have all kinds of people, because we really, again, everybody's welcome. People who are very, very strongly religious are also welcome.
Right.
And people who don't believe in God are welcome too. It's also interesting too, observing how people react to the light, and there can be a tendency as a human being to predict, like, oh, this person is very spiritual and nice, they're going to have a great experience. And this person, they're kind of abrupt and they're short-tempered, they're not going to like, this isn't for them. But when we have people experience the light, we realize this kind of prediction doesn't work at all. Right. So there's a different dimension, and we could get into karma and past lives or these deeper things, but the bottom line is that through the light, we can see that these things are really infecting us right here and now in our daily lives. Mm-hmm. And without the light, I don't think I would really be able to understand that.
It's true.
And the center is a place where it's concentrated. It's set up as a holy place, so there's something different at the center. Yes. And it's available freely when you go there. Again, people are always there. But really, the practice of light can be done anywhere and any time, so we can do it with everybody and everything. Yes. The idea, again, everything has spirit. Everything composes spirit. So that tends to be a more indigenous, you know, native type of way of looking at things. People live in nature. Yeah. So a lot of us in our modern lifestyles, we've lost that. So this idea of having a different kind of relationship with nature, and even spending time in nature, is something that can be very important to have, again, a more balanced, broader experience of what being spiritual is.
Definitely. So is there anything else that you would like to add?
Changes in their personality in a way that opens them up. For example, somebody who's always upset, for example. Yeah. And they think that that's them, because since they remember they've been like that, and everyone around them knows them to be that way. Yeah. And in some cases, I've seen people through the devotion with the light and really putting the principles into practice have that change. A lot of times it's not a conscious, like, oh, I decided. No, it's like, without even knowing it, it changes. So like, say somebody they hadn't seen in 3 months sees them, and it's like, what happened to you? You're different. And
I know.
and they're like, wow, you know, I am different. And it's at that very profound level, the deepest consciousness, where even with like deep introspection, we're just touching the edge of that, which we understand. From there, you go into the realm of the soul, for example. So the change in that deepest level becomes like a natural change, because that's the source of the thoughts. That's the source of the vibrations coming in. And the idea that we can really change at that level is so profound. And it also goes to the fact that we are all ultimately divine beings. Right. We all have the soul as our true self, and it's covered up. It's covered up with impurities. It's covered up with all kinds of distractions and attachments. And that process of uncovering it leads to various spiritual experiences. So that's why this is so open in the sense. It's really just a question of doing that purification work and having the experiences, and then it's a very natural process, because we're actually, in a sense, returning to the origin of who we truly are. Right. But yet it's more evolved because of all the science and technology and all the experiences we've had. So the absolute true part of it never changes. That's eternal. But the relative part in this world evolves. So it's this combination of the eternal divine soul and the evolving human personality and the human being. Yes. So one of our key principles is the principle of a cross, the idea of having things that are opposite and then combining them skillfully and having something greater come out. I would call it like transcend and include. So material and spiritual, for example. Yes. Rather than having them in opposition, figure out how to bring them both into combination, then you have something that's even greater. It's more effective, more powerful, and more close to reality. Yes. And we can bring this into all kinds of other areas of politics and other kinds of issues, that this idea of harmonizing and combining in a way that allows something new to be born and come out. So this idea of transcend and include. So this is something that we could use a lot more of in all aspects of life right now, with people just in so much confusion and suffering and all kinds of anxiety and depression. It's really
we just came out from like such a big times, you know, and then who knows what's waiting for us ahead of the road, but you know, here we are. Yes.
Yeah, and that's one of the greatest things going back to cleansing these principles, is to realize that behind all the suffering, all the difficulties, it's actually quote hopeful that things are actually being prepared to go in a better direction. It's just, in a certain sense, it's a question of how much resistance is to this change. The more resistance, the more difficult it'll be.
Right.
But the change itself is absolutely occurring because it's part of this natural progression of evolution. From my personal experience now, I've been doing this for 36 years, and 26 years on a full-time basis, where it's basically my life.
Oh, wow.
And I essentially feel like I've won the spiritual lottery. Because even though there's centers all over, there's only a handful of people who really experience this, and it's like, this has just transformed my life beyond I could imagine.
I don't know what else to say, so go try the light. Light is good, and it's basically, you know, there's many names for it. Chi, light, prana, God's rays.
What this light we're giving is very specific to this practice, but the terminology we use can really be what resonates best for us.
Right.
So if you rather say you're receiving the love of God, it's better to think in that way and pray in that way.
So you get more open to it. Yeah.
And it's that respecting where people are coming from too. So,
right.
And working with reality, where we're really coming from, and starting from there.
But basically, all of these things, all these manifestations of goodness, they all come from one place. You know.
Yep.
So I just wanted to say to everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you very much, Gary, for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me and setting this up, and hope everyone has a chance to experience the principles and experience the light and see what they have to offer.
Yes, have fun. And if you're in Puerto Rico, their center here is located in Trujillo Alto. In Miami is located in Kendall. And in New York is located in
Manhattan.
In Manhattan. So thank you for watching Gustavo's World. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Aiko. She's there. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget about our next video. And if you like this video, please, you know, like it. Comment all you want. Probably Gary's going to be watching also the comments and answering by himself or whatever. And thank you for watching. And don't forget to subscribe. And see you in another great adventure in Gustavo's World.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. That's clicking on the little bell. Comment all you want. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like.
Don't forget to subscribe to grow the community.
And also, don't forget to follow our social media. And if you want to go ahead and share this video in all your platforms, share the love. Till next time!
Bye.